All right, so we're back again, sitting down, getting ready to move on to other things, other stories, other parts of your life, other things that are interesting and exciting. And that's the thing is, I'll tell you, when it comes to stories, like um, after we did this last time, I posted on Instagram, and Marla was super stoked and was like, "Oh man, that's like greatest storyteller of all time," recording. So it was. It'll be good to share that first episode and let them. And I don't even know if I'd call it an episode, but I guess episode. And so anyway, we left off last time. We were talking about you were in the army. And how old were you when you went into the army?
I was 23 when I got drafted. The reason is because I was went 1 year of college, then went on a mission for 2 years, and then came back and graduated from college. I was 24 years old when I got drafted, and there was an interesting thing about that. Before I left to go into the Army, my father called me and told me that he had a blessing that he wanted to give me. And in this blessing, he told me, he said, "I bless you that you will come out of the Army with no injuries, neither mentally or physically." And I had no idea about this post trauma stuff that they had in the military. And I was a little bit nervous about it going in. It was the height of the Vietnam War. And I'd signed up for OCS, and second lieutenants in the Army. Their life expectancy over in Vietnam was about 6 weeks. And so I left and I went in, and I went to basic training down at Fort Ord, California, and then was one of about 300 it was there were four of us out of about 300 that didn't have infantry AIT, and I went into clerk typist. And then
What's infantry AIT?
that's infantry is the grunts. That's the guys that are on the grounds with the AR-15s. They're the ones that are on the line. The clerk typist, we sat behind a desk. I was in AIT, which is Advanced Infantry Training, is what that stands for. And I would lay in bed and watch the infantry go marching by, and I'd get up and wander over to breakfast, then go over and sit behind a typewriter. I kind of cheated on the thing. I took beginning type when I was in the ninth grade, and then I took beginning type when I was in high school because it was an easy A, and then I went into the Army, and they started us over with beginning type again. And I ended up, I could type, got up to 60 words a minute in AIT, and so I ended up going to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and I was there for 3 months. And the ones that went straight from basic training to stateside, they were all going nearly 100% either to Vietnam or to Korea. And I came down on a levee all by myself for Germany, and that's where I spent the rest of my time over in Germany. And I came home, like my father said, with no problems at all. I really enjoyed myself. I had a permanent TDY order for most of Germany.
What's TDY?
a travel duty away is what it is. They paid you. I bought a brand new Volkswagen Beetle, and I'd drive it to Heidelberg and to New Ulm and Neckarsulm, and I was in headquarters battery. I was in it was Pershing missiles is what they were back then. They're way outdated now, but there was more firepower in one of those warheads than all the bombs dropped in 1 and 2, including Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they had these missiles on the back of a truck that traveled around Germany on the roads. And they could stop them and lift them up like a dump truck. The bed would lift, and they could fire them right off of the back of these trucks. And we had 5 or 6 of those missiles that they had firing batteries, and I used to go around and pull inspections and stuff on them, and that's why I had this TDY order.
That's cool. And so how long did you serve in the Army?
I was just in for 2 years. I was just a draftee. I actually volunteered for the draft. I think I said that last week, so I was just in for a little less than 2 years. Actually, I came home because Dad was dying of cancer, like I told before, and they give me a 6-week early out, so I was in a little less than 2 years.
I don't know. And so boot camp or basic training in California. Tell me about that. What was that like?
That was. Some people didn't like it much, but I found you can have fun wherever you're at, and basic training to me was like Boy Scout camp. I had
Only with guns.
I ran a track when I was in high school and didn't mind running, and we'd run to the rifle range and back, and I would shoot. I was shooting at the crows on the rifle range instead of the targets, and one of the best ones was we went out on night fire, they called it, and what they did is they taped during the day. They taped a board across the rifle so you couldn't see the sights, and then they put a target out in front of you about 50, 75 yards out there, and you just had to look over the top of your barrel and shoot at it. And we were shooting M14s, and they hold, I think it was 18 rounds, and we were supposed to load each other's up, and we were supposed to load 7, and you'd load for the guy ahead of you, and then he'd load for you. And I told him, I said, look, here's what I want you to do. You load 14 for me, and I'll load 14 for you. And then we'll just have to shoot twice as fast as everybody else. And we got pretty good at hitting them. Pretty soon, instead of hitting the target, I made a mark on the board below it and was trying to shoot the board off. And pretty soon, we had a couple of guys on each side of us trying to cut it off. We never did drop, but we hit it pretty good. Then we go out on night fire, and what they had was a tin plate out there in front of you, and it was black, dark. And when you shot, what you had to do is the hits. And so I had the kid do the same for me. They had 14 rounds, 7 for practice and 7 for real. And I said, look, buddy, I want to make sure we pass this thing. So what I want you to do is you load me 3 for practice and 11 for real, and I'll do the same for you. And he said, okay. So he loaded me up 3 rounds, and I shot, and they came back and gave your score, and he said 3 hits. So then we loaded up the 11 rounds, and I opened up, and they never gave us our score. But the next morning, the sergeant was so mad. He came out and he said, "You dumb guys." Paraphrasing there a little bit. He says, "You don't even know which target is yours. This guy over here, he gets a 0, and the other guy gets 11. You're not even shooting at your own targets." And so anyway, I really quite enjoyed it. It was my drill sergeant was younger than I was, because I was 24 years old when I went in, and most of the kids I was with was 18 and 19 years old, and so they treated me that way. And I was a college graduate, and most of them were not, and so I really had a good time in basic training, actually.
That's awesome. And now you had, how many drill sergeants did you have?
We had, there were 2 that was over our company. What they had was 4 companies in our barracks, and there was 2 drill sergeants over each one. And so, and they were graded on how well their boys did, how they passed the physical, the PT test, the physical training test, and they had written tests and all the rest of that. And so there was a couple of guys that I was helping out with their physical training, doing a couple of we'd switch shirts when we went to take the test, and he had trouble with the overhead bars. He was built about like a pear, and he'd practice and practice until he'd actually pull the skin off of his hands trying to make those bars, and he just couldn't do more than about 3, and you're supposed to do about 100 in a couple of minutes, and I didn't have any trouble, so I switched shirts and ran his. And the drill sergeant, he knew about it, but he thought it was pretty cool, so we got along good.
That's good. You told me a story once about getting along with your drill instructors and what you did.
Why do I have to tell that story?
Yes, it's one of the stories. This is a story I'm going to tell you that probably most people don't know, and I think it's a lesson that I've carried with me like my whole life, and try to implement it in different times.
Well, I hope this is the story you're thinking about, but when I was in the Army, nearly all of my drill sergeants smoked. And so I went to the PX, and I found out what brand of cigarettes each one of those guys carried, their preference was, and carried them with me all the time. So that when one of the drill sergeants ran out of smokes and wanted one, they always came to me. And it paid off, because one of them, when somebody stole they issued us a field jacket when we got into basic training, and if you lost it, you had to pay for it. It was $25. Well, $25. I was only making $100 a month as a private, and somebody stole mine. And my drill sergeant says, "You know what, Arnold?" He says, "I've got an old one at home. I'll bring it in." And it didn't matter what it would look like, as long as you had one to turn in. And he gave me the thing that saved me quite a bit of money, which was really appreciated. But anyway, I tried to suck up a little bit. Is that the right word?
I wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't say suck up, because that's I don't know, it's a negative connotation. But I think playing the game a little bit, and paying attention and taking care of people around you, and making sure what's going on. And I remember that story that you told me you'd carry 4 packs of cigarettes with you at any given moment.
Yeah, that's true. I had well, there was more than one company sergeant that I dealt with. When we went out, we had two that was actually over our house, but see, there was two for every company, 4 companies. That means there was 8 of them that were pushing us around when we were all out together, and I knew them all, and I knew what they smoked, and so I carried one for each one.
Oh yeah. Well, brands are important. I'm just telling you. You taught me that. It's I was always a Coke kid, and until I became an adult, and we always had Fords, and so it's I definitely know about branding.
Yeah, you got that right.
So when you got deployed and you went to Germany, um, was I know Cindy went and Phil was a baby, but was John born in Germany or was he born stateside?
No, he was born. He was born after we came back. Cindy was pregnant when she came home, and that was when I got. Phil was 6 weeks old when I got drafted, and I was over in Germany for 3 or 4 weeks, and found an apartment and bought a car, and then sent for her, and she came over, and boy was she a little bit upset with me when she got there. We got lost on the way to the airport and had trouble and got there about a half hour after her plane had landed. And so she's sitting there with all of her luggage and this baby that was 4 or 5 months old now, and all alone in a country where she didn't speak the language. And boy, did I hear about it when we finally got there. But anyway, and the same thing happened when she left. Cindy was probably 7 months pregnant, and you could fly for free if you were under 2. And so I sent Cindy and PHILLIP home before he turned 2, so that I wouldn't have to pay for his flight from Germany home. And she had to fly by herself for 7 months pregnant with a baby in her luggage, and she had a little bit of trouble getting on the way back too. But he was born in October, and I came home in July, so she was 6 months pregnant, I guess.
There you go. And when you were over there in Germany, you told me about the branch you were in, and some of the Sunday school teachers, and helicopter rides.
Yeah, our branch president's name was Richard Mccoy, and he was quite a guy. I really liked him. He was a helicopter pilot, and he had to log so many night hours, and he'd come and get me, and we'd just fly around Germany. And touch and goes and stuff at night, and I quite enjoyed that. And he flew me. I used to have to go to Heidelberg once a week. I was over the finance for the 56th Artillery Group, and I used to have to go to these meetings up in Heidelberg every week, and I flew with him a couple of times up there and back, and he was a little bit crazy. We were coming back this one time, and there was... he said, "Do you want to fly this thing?" And I said, "Sure." So he said, "Okay, the tendency is to oversteer, overreact." And so I said, "Just put your hand on your knee and hold it there, and then watch the horizon." And I did. And I had it about 10 seconds, and a little updraft, and it moved, and I moved that stick, and pretty soon we was flopping around in the air, and he was busting a gut, and I got mad at him. So anyway, and then we was flying along, and there was a herd of cows down there with this German, and he buzzed the sucker. He dropped right down about 20 feet over his head, and this German was so mad at him, and them cows were running and a bellering like you can't believe. But anyway, he was the guy. He got to be pretty famous. He came back and was in law enforcement down at BYU and decided that he didn't have enough money, I guess, because he hijacked a plane and got the ransom. And he had him give him 2 or 3 extra parachutes. And back then they'd had a couple of hijackings like that, and they put tracers in them so they knew where they were at. And so then he opened the door and had them fly out over the West Desert, and then he just chucked these parachutes out randomly. And then when they circled over the Provo airport, he bailed out with his own parachute and landed and walked home with a box full of money under his arm, and stopped at a hamburger joint, bought a hamburger, and when they recovered the money, that was the only thing that was missing, was enough for a hamburger out of the thing. But he was, I really liked him when we were over there. They sent him to prison, and he busted out, and they called us and wanted to know if we'd heard from him, because they were calling all of the people that knew him over there in Germany. He ended up busting out of prison, whittled a pistol out of a piece of wood and colored it, and busted out of prison, and they caught him a while later, and they shot him. But anyway,
Yeah. It's like a DB Cooper copycat.
yeah, pretty much. That's about DB Cooper got away with it.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That's funny. I love that story. That one was always, I'll never forget his name. Somebody asked me about it, a couple weeks ago, and I just remember because they wrote that book about him.
Richard McCoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one come out, and somebody tried to tell him that it was a really DB Cooper, but it was not. I knew him very well. Man, knew his wife. They had a reunion, and his wife and kid. He had a daughter and a little boy as Richard Jr. And they came, talked. But anyway, she sued him for saying that he was DB Cooper, but
You remember the name of the book?
I don't.
The Real McCoy.
Oh, was that right?
That's why I'll never forget his names, because I thought that was a catchy title.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, as far as like backing up a little bit, because we talked about going to the military, traveling over there, being with Cindy. How long were you married when you got drafted?
Let's see. I got married in '67, and I went over. I was so I would have been 20. I was 23. I was 22 when I got married and turned 23 in April, and I was.
What month did you? When did you get married?
January.
You got January what?
January 24th.
Okay.
1967, and I was over there in '68, so I'd only been married a year and a half when I got drafted. I was halfway through my junior year in college when I got drafted. I mean, when I got married, and then a year and a half later I graduated, and within 6 weeks I was in the Army.
There you go. So there is a story that I've never heard, so I'm just going to ask. But how did you meet Cindy? Like, how did that happen?
Oh, brother. Well, I was going to BYU, and I had two friends of mine that I ran around with quite a bit. And I came home about 5 o'clock at night, and this guy called me, and he had a blind date with Cindy, and he'd been on a mission to New York and had converted this airline stewardess, and she happened to be in town and called him and wanted to go out with him. And so they called me and said, would you take this other girl off our hands? And they called Cindy and said, would it be okay if you go with Phil instead of with Jim? And she says, I don't know either one of them, so it doesn't make any difference to me. And so I ended up with your mom and never looked back.
What did you guys do on your first date?
Went to a movie, actually. Went to the Capitol Theater. And
Like downtown Capitol Theater?
Yep. Yeah. Back then it was a movie house.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a pretty fancy movie house that had a big screen.
Do you remember what movie?
I do not.
Well, then it was a good date because you were more interested in your date than you were the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I can still tell the first date or the first movie I saw was Char. I'm just kidding. So, no, that's awesome. So how long did you guys date before you guys got engaged?
Let's see. It was in May, and it was November. It was around Thanksgiving, and I was going to school, and she was up here, and I was coming home every weekend. And I asked her if she wanted, if she'd marry me, and she said she would. And I said, okay. I said, go pick yourself out a diamond, and I'll be back next week and go pay for it. And I thought I was being pretty cagey about that because I thought she would be pretty conservative in the price of the ring. But what she did is picked out a band and then let me pick out the diamond that went in it.
Oh.
And it wasn't as small as I thought maybe I should have, that I thought I was going to get away with. But back then it was quite inexpensive. As I recall, it was about $350 or something was what I paid for the ring and the diamond. This last marriage that it was over $5,000. So but I think the diamond may have been a hair bigger too.
Probably. Plus, it's like we were talking about on the way down. Inflation. You
got that right.
Oh, that's awesome. So, where did you guys have your reception? I mean, these, like, honestly, I have zero clue. These are all, like, fresh questions for me.
The reception was at the steakhouse, and it was it was January the 24th, and I was just on semester break, and so we had the reception at the steakhouse, and it was the storm of the century. I swear, it was snowing, and Cindy was really upset. She was afraid that nobody would show up, but we really had a pretty good turnout. And we were going to go to Las Vegas. We only had a couple of 3 days. And so we decided not to try to drive it that night. So we just went to Salt Lake and got a motel actually, and got up the next morning. It was still snowing. So we just went back to bed and got up the next morning, and it was still snowing. So we decided, you know what? This motel we were staying at was only 2 miles from the house that we had rented, and so we decided we'll put that off. And so we just went up to her. Never did have a honeymoon. Just went up to the house, and then I went back to school. Your mom was working at the state capitol building at the time, and we rented a place on Wall Street. It was just directly across the street. You walk out the front door and on the steps, the state capitol. And she'd walk up and she would work for the building board there. And that was quite a deal. I went on an inspection with her boss once, and there's a ladder that goes over the dome that you can go clear up over the top, and that was a little bit hairy because it was just a ladder on an angle that, and you're looking down at the dome. They're in the state capitol, and it went up and climbed up and around the top of it. But anyway,
That's pretty cool. So like the dome where the painting is when you come in and look up.
yeah, it's just a there's a big open space on top of that, and it just crawled up across the top of that and up on, and then you can get clear up on the top. And he had to go up to inspect the roof or something, and asked me to go with him, so I did. But anyway, your mom supported us. I never worked at all while I was going to school. I worked all summer and saved all my money, and back then I could make enough in the summertime for books, tuition, and fees. And she was making like $300 a month, and that was our apartment was $75 a month, which included the utilities, and it was a furnished apartment. And so
Man, do you know how much an apartment on Wall Street would go for right now?
on Wall Street, but this is
No, I
up
mean like
there.
up there.
I have no idea.
Oh man, I guarantee you probably like $2,500 a month.
Really.
That's prime real estate. Again, inflation.
We lived there. We lived there for about 3 months, and then we got in the landlord sold the house that we were at, and some couple from California moved in upstairs, and they slept. And it was in the winter time, and they slept with the windows open, and the heat. It was a house that was made into a duplex. I mean, there was an upstairs and a downstairs, and they would come downstairs and use their key and open our door and come in and fix the thermostat. The thermostat was in the downstairs, which really chapped me off. I told him, "You come walking through there, and I'm going to blow your head off." And he said, "I own this place, and I have a right to come in." And I said, "Not as long as I'm renting it, you don't." Anyway, we got in a fight and ended up moving down the street to it was 510 North Main was the name of it, and that was even cheaper. We was only paying 35 or $40 a month, but there was 5 apartments there, and they made me kind of the manager of the thing, and so it was quite a bit cheaper. But anyway.
So did you commute to?
Yeah, there was to the BYU, and your mom walked to work, and I commuted down to the BYU. We had a 60 Falcon. That was your mom's when I never owned a car until I got married. I just drove Dad's, and so I commuted. And as it turned out, there was a couple other people that were commuting, and so sometimes I would just catch rides down. I'd drive about every 3 days or something, and there was 2 or 3 other guys, and we carpooled down.
What kind of car did your dad have that you drove?
I'm sorry?
What kind of car did your dad have that you borrowed?
Oh man. Well, the car that it was like a 68 Ford at the end. Oh, it wasn't 68. Geez, I got married in 67. He had a 58 Ford that I grew up with, and it was a black and white one. And they told, the neighbors said it looked like a basketball player with his suit on, And anyway, it was a T-Bird Interceptor with 4-barrel carbs, and and that thing would move. One time I was sitting around the dinner table, and I was set on one end and Dad on the other, thank goodness. And I asked him, I said, Dad, what's the matter with the car? He said, what do you mean, what's the matter with the car? I haven't noticed anything wrong with it. I says, you get it over 110 and it starts cutting out. And he came right over the table after me, I swear. And when Mom saved me, she said, "Gee, John, don't you know when he's just joshing you?" And I said, "Yeah, geez, Dad." And so he backed off. So then I asked the mechanic what was the problem, because it really was. And he said, when you get going that fast, he said, the fuel pump doesn't pump fuel fast enough for the engine, and so then it starts cutting off till you back off a little bit. But I used to race it quite a bit. Airport number 2, when I was a kid, was the old old airport for Camp Kearns. There was Army camp that was built there during World War II, and when the war ended, they took all the barracks out. In fact, his dad moved 3 of them down on the farm, and we turned them into chicken coops. But they just abandoned the airport up there, and so the landing strip and all that was there. And we'd go up there at night and cut a hole in the fence. We'd cut a hole in the fence, and then we'd go out there and had a quarter of a mile marked off, and guys with flashlights and dropping the flag and then racing to see whose dad had the fastest car. And one day my dad asked me, he says, "Understand you're racing?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "How you doing?" I says, "Haven't lost yet." He says, "Didn't figure you would," and never said another word. I about died. I thought I was really in trouble.
That's cool. There you go. Well, a man in his car, he's pretty proud.
There you go.
You said something and just it struck me. I had no idea. So Camp Kearns, they had barracks out there. Is that the chicken coops that we tore down?
Yes, some of them. What they had was Dad moved 3 of them down. One of them was we turned into a chicken coop. The other one, he left it was open-ended, and that was the garage. That was the barracks. And then the one that was right, then there was one other barracks that was right just north of Mom's house. Just as you come around the driveway there, that one was a barracks also that come from Camp Kearns.
So I don't remember the one that was north.
They put the newspapers in there. Mom turned it into a garage.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was the garage. So
yeah, and it was, but it was a chicken coop. In fact, that's where we called it the brooder coop, and we used to get 500 baby chicks every spring, and so they were little teeny. They were just day old or 2 days old, and they had a brooder. They called it a heater that kept them baby chicks warm. They could they could come in, and it was ran off of propane. It was off to the side, but yeah, that was the other chicken coop. And then he bought 2 more after that.
I remember when they tore that one down, and Grandma built her big garage.
Her garage there, yeah. And then Bob's got the doors and stuff off it when he built his.
Yeah, when they developed that whole area.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I had no idea that those were old barracks.
Barracks is from Camp Kearns. Yeah, my older brothers talk about them marching up and down the street. See, 4700 South was a dirt road until they built Camp Kearns, and then they finally paved that road.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you about your dad was proud of you about driving fast, winning races. What did he like to race? I mean, was he a fast driver?
Dad, yeah, Dad liked. He said when I put my foot on the gas, he said I like to feel something, and so he usually bought a car that was a V8, and that was probably the hottest car we had. But he was noted for his driving in the neighborhood. He worked out to Kennecott, and they used to commute out there, and they'd come wheeling into the house by the house, and if they were late or something, they'd move over and have Dad drive because he drove a little faster than the rest of them. Yeah, he had a couple of sister-in-laws that were afraid to ride with him, but maybe it was just because I was raised with him that was just normal, I guess.
It's kind of like always riding on a roller coaster, you know.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
That you told me a quote once about your dad and his ability to drive, and it's something I've always chuckled about. Is that you said that he could leave 3 minutes late and show up 2 minutes early wherever he was going.
Yeah, we left one time. He slept in. We went out to Davenport every year deer hunting, and it's a narrow dirt road that runs up there, and his alarm didn't go off, and we left in the dark. What we used to go was leave about midnight and go out there and then hike the mountain in the dark, and then get on top and build a bonfire, and then wait for the daylight to come. And one time he slept in, and we got up real late, and we're going up that canyon like you can't believe. And he's passing these guys on this one-lane dirt road, honking the horn and flashing the lights, and around him he'd go. We got the bottom of the canyon, and there was flashlights halfway up the mountain, and you know what? We were the first ones on top. He was a fast driver,
And a dedicated to being first.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to tell you that explains a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I mean, like, when we go hunt and you're like running down the dike and like
He took me duck hunting one time when I was 10 years old. Usually you used to have to wait till you were 12, and my older brothers thought I was picked on. I mean, I was spoiled because Dad let me go when I was 10 this one year, and we're going down the dike, and I'm running 3 steps and walking 2, and running 3 steps and walking 2, trying to keep up. And then we hit the waterfront, and we had to go out and walk down the water and along the front of the Tules, and it opened at daylight, so it was pitch black. And I was way too slow, so he said, "You just follow the Tules down, and when you come to me, I'll tell you. That I'll call to you." So I'm going down, tromping along. I'd see this guy, and I says, "Dad." He'd say, "Nope." I think he's went on by it, and "Dad," and the next guy, "Nope." And finally, after about a half an hour walking down through this thing in the dark, he said, "Yeah, son, come over here." So, but anyway, he walked fast. He did. He worked out to Kennecott in the mills, and spent a lot of time going up and down. It was built on the side of the hill, and so he was in pretty good shape. And he was a big man. He was 6'3", 200 pounds the whole time I was growing up, and he wasn't fat. He was just a big man.
Damn. I didn't realize he was that tall.
Yeah, he was taller than I was. he could have whipped me the whole time he was alive too. He's a pretty big boy.
It's, we always joke about it in my office. We call old man muscle, you know.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. So you're 6'2". How tall are all your brothers?
We're all within an inch of each other. My brother John is 6'3", but I was the shortest. I was 6'2", about right on the butt, and then the rest of them are half inch or an inch taller than me. We're all over 6'8", over 6'2".
Man, see, I am the runt. I'm
You're
6 foot flat,
6 flat.
6 flat, and so John and Phil both. Phil's 6'2", and John, I mean, 6'5", if he wasn't so bow legged.
Yeah, no kidding. He looks like he's ridden horses his whole life.
Yeah, no, he's a big man, big man. What? So you're going to school, driving down there. How? I'm trying to think. Um, with that commute, I mean, was it easy? Was it good? Did you like driving to school every day?
Not, it wasn't too bad. The only trouble was in the winter, and especially the point of the mountain. I come across the point of the mountains a couple of times when it was snowing so hard that I was looking at the guardrail on the side, trying to keep on the road, and I was so afraid that the car in front of me was going to stop, or the car behind me was going to go faster than me, and I was going to get rear-ended. But it wasn't too bad. Um, the time that I remember going back and forth at school is because I never had a car, and Dad always said, "You buy a car, and you can buy a car if you want to, but you're going to pay the insurance, you're going to buy all the gas, and you're paying all the repairs. But if you drive mine, I'll take care of all those things." So guess what? I drove Dad's car. So this one time I had a date down in Provo. So I got Dad's car. I hitched a ride home, got Dad's car, drove back to Provo, picked up the girl, drove back to Salt Lake to double date with a buddy of mine, drove her back to Provo, and was on my way home. And I'm coming down the Pole Line Road, which is, we call it the Pole Line Road. It's on 2700. And it was, there were no stop signs or anything on that road, but it was 40 mile an hour. And it was like 2:30 in the morning. And I'm doing around 85 or 90 miles an hour down the road when I got pulled over by a cop. And I got out and ran over and jumped in. He checked my driver's license over and said, "Where you going?" And I says, "I'm just going home." And I told him a little bit of the story. And he says, "Well, if I let you go," he says, "you promise to keep your foot out of the carburetor?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And so he let me go. So that was just one of several encounters that I've had drive, and I've been really quite fortunate, I guess, as far as when I was younger.
I guess it's hereditary, lead foot.
Lead foot, yeah, I think so. Got it from my dad, and you got it from me, I think.
There you go. That is no joke.
Yeah, really.
So that's cool. What going back to when you were younger and a kid growing up in in that house and those tight quarters and things like that. What what is your fondest memory of being a child growing up? And I'm going to broaden that a little bit. Let's go. What's your fondest memory of growing up at that time?
That's we stuck together as a family quite a bit. We played together a lot. Uh, I'll have to say I played a lot with my older sister. Um, we used to I got really quite good at jacks.
And that's Beth, right?
Yeah, my sister Beth. Yeah, she's 2 years older than me, and I got really quite good at jacks, and we used to play pickup sticks quite a bit, and we played hopscotch, if you can believe this, and we drew a hopscotch out on the sidewalk in front of the house, and we'd take the heel off of an old shoe, and that's what was our taw, is what they called it, and we played that a lot. And when I was in the fourth grade, I got a hoppy taw, what they called it, for my birthday. And anyway, when I was in the sixth grade, they had a hopscotch tournament, and I was the only guy in it. And I just whipped everybody, and it got down to me and my cousin. And whoever won this one was going to go to district to play over at Liberty Park for the district championship. So they sent me and my cousin out to see who was going to win, and I had her hands down. And I said, you know what, I don't want to go be the only guy over at Liberty Park playing hopscotch. Do you want to go? And she says, yeah, I do. And I says, then you're going. So I just kept throwing my hoppy taw out the end of the hopscotch thing until she finally got through and won. Then we went in and said, she won. So then I got out of it. But we played a lot as a family with a lot of cards and that. We talked about that a little bit last week. I don't know. Some of the fondest memories I had was we went to Yellowstone every single year. That used to write for reservations, and they wouldn't take them until January of each year. And Mom would send off January 1 every year for reservations up to Fishing Bridge. And then we'd go up and we'd rent 2 cabins and fish and stay there for a week every single year. And they did that until my youngest brother left on his mission. And Mom and Dad and my little brother went up there. And then when he left, then they quit.
Would they be in one cabin and all the kids in the other?
No. There was usually it was the 4 boys or the 5 boys would be in one cabin, and Mom and Dad and the 2 girls would stay in the other one. They were small, and Mom she used to cook fish and stuff, and we'd fish off the bridge. It was funny watching. One time I was a little kid and I was watching this guy, and he was drinking and fishing off a fishing bridge. Now you can't, but back then you could. And the more he drank, the more frustrated he got. And pretty soon he just stood up and threw the pole and everything right over into the river. And I thought, geez, I wish he'd give it to me. But anyway, it was we had a lot of good times, a lot of memories, a lot of a bear running around. Get trapped in the restrooms. They were all outdoor, and he'd go over there, and there'd be a bear out in front with in the garbage or something, and you have to wait until they moved away before you get out of there. But anyway,
that's funny. Did you go on other family vacations or take any other vacations?
Normally. We started going to Fish Lake every year also, and besides that, but One family vacation that we took that we still talk about every time we get together was when my oldest brother uh, got released from his mission down in Mexico.
And that's John.
Yeah, my oldest brother John got released. There were we climbed in a. I'm trying to think. It had to be the '58 Ford, and we got in there, and there was 6 of us drove from here down to 200 miles south of Mexico City down to a little town called Puebla, where we picked up my brother, and then there were 7. We had 3 in the front. No, there were 7 to begin with, because then we had 8, because there were 4 in the back and 3 in the front all the way down. There were 9 of us, and one brother did not go, and he was married, and he stayed home and took care of the chickens and the cows. And
Is that Paul?
Paul, yeah. But the rest of us went. So there was 4 in the back and 3 in the front, and we'd switch off to who got to ride in the front every once in a while. And anyway, we drove all the way down there and picked up my brother, and then there were 8, and we traveled around and saw a lot of sights, and then flew Bob. He was in college, and flew him home, and then the rest of us, then we drove back to Salt Lake. We were gone like 3 weeks. It was one heck of a trip. It was the first time in my life that I had ever eaten out at a restaurant for dinner.
How old were you?
I was in the 9th grade.
Okay.
And none of us, we never ever ate out. We always, but and Mom, she was gonna save money, and so she brought pots and pans and bottled chicken and all kinds of stuff to take with us down there. And you ought to seen us at the border, going through the border, and the inspection guys taking all this stuff out of the back. But we stopped at El Rio, was the name of this hotel in Texas, and they were looking for one that had a stove and that, so Mom could cook dinner, and it was going to save money. And when we got there, you can't believe this place. We started playing on the bed, and the bed crashed to the floor, and they opened one of the doors, come off the hinges, and you can't believe that. And Dad was afraid that he was really going to get set up for all these repairs. And that's the first time I ever seen, Dad, he got up, and we left there about 3 in the morning, and we never never had another home-cooked meal. We just ate out, especially when we got to Old Mexico. Then it was cheap. It was really inexpensive to eat. And so we ate out all of the meals and stayed at Hotel Hunter was the name of the hotel down there. And I found the people extremely friendly, which I was surprised. Just walked across the street and was watching some kids play soccer, and they came over and let me know that I was welcome to come play with them, which I was really quite tickled about how friendly the people seemed to be to us. But anyway, we made her back home, and I was home one day and was driving down the street and stopped at a stop sign, and the drive line dropped out of the car. And Dad, he said, "Boy, we were blessed on that one."
Oh yeah. No, that's amazing. So your mom bottled chicken?
Yeah, and we ended up, you know what, we when we got down, we decided Dad decided, I guess, that he'd rather eat out than try to find places to cook all this stuff. So they ended up giving all this food that Mom had packed to the missionaries, and so then all we had to worry about was the pots and pans and all the clothes and the stuff for 8 people in the car in this '58 Ford. You can't believe what
So,
that.
so I pulled it. I gotta know. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was. Yep, that's it.
That is unbelievable. Like, I'm looking at this picture and I'm just like, that thing was. I mean, it's a big car because it's 58, so they made them
Yeah.
bigger back then. But 8 people.
Well, yeah, for a while. Most of the time, all the way down the back, it was just 7.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it so much better. I mean, it's like you're talking 7, and you're in ninth grade, so you only have 2 younger siblings.
Yeah, Mary and Mervyn.
I bet they got to ride up front more often.
No, they didn't. We switched. We was switched off. Mervyn spent some time in the back window. Just it was big enough that he could lay out there sometimes.
I remember that's how I went to California when I was 4. That was my spot in the back of the
window.
in the back window of the Cadillac.
Yeah.
That's
We had a Cadillac though. See, and there was only 4 of you kids.
yeah, yeah, but it was still crowded. I mean,
There you go.
So
I was. Mom read stories. She had for us. We never had any electronics or anything, of course. And so,
was there a radio?
And but you get down to Old Mexico and you don't understand anything. So, but the radios are nothing like they are now. You just. We never listened to the radio. No. Mom read to us, and I took enough homework with me to keep me busy. And when I got back, I never. I hadn't done one thing, not one. I had one teacher. I brought him back 3 or 4 Spanish funny books. He asked me to do that, and you know what? I got an A out of his class, even though I didn't do any of the work.
There you go.
He was.
See, that's where you learned. That's where you learned. You taking care of the teacher, you get an A. You carry packs of cigarettes, you go to Germany. It's like,
There you go.
that's good stuff. So one last question is, you had bottled chicken in like mason jars that you took to eat. Did you take bottled water too?
No, no. You know what? I don't. I think we bought water after you get across the border. You couldn't drink the water, but you could get bottled water, as I recall. You know what? I don't remember too much about that. I know that when I went down there afterwards, that's what I did, to buy soda pop, or they had bottled water even in the restaurants that they gave you.
Was it because I know they didn't have plastic products back then? Was it like a glass bottle of water?
I don't remember. I don't. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just curious. Like when you were a missionary, so did you just live off soda?
I did. Well, when I was in Peru, the mission rule was if they offer you Coke, you take it. And if you refuse to take it, then tell them it's because you don't like it, not because it's against church rules. And so I lived off of Coke. Yeah, I used to drink about 2 quarts a day.
And I'm going to say right now, I'm sure that it wasn't if they offered it. I'm sure you were asking.
No, actually, what I had when I was in Peru was we had maids that did all the cooking, and so what they had was breakfast, and then the main meal was at noon. All of the stores and everything closed down for 3 hours midday, and it was very what's the word?
Impolite?
Impolite. There's the word. Yeah, it was very impolite to go out during those 3 hours, and so we did not. And we ate our big meal, and you could take a nap or whatever you wanted to do, and then we'd go out in the evening. And the maid would go home. So what she cooked is the breakfast and the lunch, and then we had to have our fend for ourselves for at night. And I'd go buy a sack of cookies and 2 quarts of Coke every single night, and that's what I ate for my evening meal.
That sounds like my breakfast. So, well, that's something that next time we come back, I'd love to talk more about the Andes mission and what it was like serving down there during that time and different things like that. But again, seriously, it's just a real pleasure to sit down and talk about these things and memories and feelings and that's the thing is there's I'm sure quite a few spiritual experiences that you like to share to your posterity and to your brothers and sisters or my brothers and sisters I should say, because I know that you talk about hereditary, that we tend to be emotional. I heard once that we got plumbed wrong. They hooked our kidneys to our
eye ducts.
That's right.
And that's for sure.
So, but thanks again. I appreciate it a lot. Big shout out to Marcus for everything he does for editing and putting this all together. But anyway, we'll wrap it up and we'll be back soon.
Sounds good.